our lives for just a few months. She was rescued from an oil field site where she had been abandoned there. And yeah, so life is interesting for us, and I'm enjoying having my kids with me. Yeah.
So and it's interesting, that environment of now you've brought home your adult daughter, and your daughter's at home with you, and that new world of experiencing her at home too as well again.
Yes. Yeah. She's become my personal trainer, actually. She was working at a gym in front end, but they were doing lots of working out. So I join her on occasion, and I figure I'm not doing too bad. So
I love That's fabulous. We had
yeah.
our oldest son came to live with us for a month too as well when the pandemic hit, and it was a neat environment to have him back into the home again and to share the day together and just be able to connect as a parent and as a parent and our adult child.
Yes. Yeah.
So Jody, tell us about your profession. What is your profession, and what does a typical day look like for you at Alberta Health Services?
So I do mental health promotion, and I've been in this position for about just over, well, coming up to 6 years actually. And a typical day for me, there's a lot of variety in my day. So there can be periods of time where I'm doing a lot of prep work, and then there's periods of time where I'm out in the community doing presentations in the community. I can have my population is very broad. I work primarily in adult environments, in the sense that I have a strong passion for workplace wellness and working with those environments and trying to create psychologically but also mentally healthy environments, and how they can do that day to day. And so it's anywhere from presentations to trainings. I also teach mental health first aid, psychological first aid for disaster and emergency, and some different things on transforming your stress. So it's a job that has a lot of different variety, and I get to work a lot in the community with different agencies and doing some of that capacity building and collaboration. So
Hmm. So every day is different for you.
pretty much, yeah.
Hmm.
I like it that way.
Well, and it gives you an opportunity in your world. I've had the chance to work with you with a variety of not-for-profits and charitable organizations, and you've been able to provide some great leadership and support in helping to process working through balancing workload, dealing with stressful times, and also as bringing kindness into communities and kindness into our place of our place of business. And when the pandemic hit, you came to mind immediately, Jody. And the pandemic is when it hit each of us the early part of March, all of our worlds changed immensely. And I know your world changed, my world changed. As I mentioned at the onset, I have 3 computers on my desk now, and I am literally on my one computer to another to another. So it's a different environment. It's a new experience for me right now. And I can share with you. There's also I've gone through some times where I'm feeling uncertain. I'm feeling challenged. I'm feeling insecure. I've got anxiety moments at times, and I look at that and I look at if I know I'm feeling this, and I hear this from others as well, that others are feeling similar, that they have similar feelings, and others have expressed different feelings as well. But as we go through this pandemic, and we look at the importance of kindness towards ourselves, and kindness towards others, and kindness towards self-care, how would you define self-care?
So self-care to me is a lot of different things, and it's a very individual experience. We have our valuable basics, which are, making sure that we're getting good nutrition, making sure that we're getting exercise, uh, a good amount of sleep, but also not too much sleep when we're looking at self-care. Being able to learn and connect with others, practicing mindfulness. So these are all things that can be part of a spiritual practice for us, can be part of daily routines that we do. And in a lot of ways, they're the foundation for good physical health and good mental health. But I think that one of the bigger things when I look at self-care, I look at a lot of different dimensions. And I know that people have different needs and they have different environments. When I was a single mom and my kids were little, self-care looked very different. I could, if I could get in a 15-minute exercise routine over my lunch hour at work, that's kind of what things look like. Now they're right alongside me. But what I've also learned over the years is self-care is about how I speak to myself. Am I as kind to myself as I would be to my friend, or am I my biggest bully? And that's where sometimes when we're spending a lot of time on our own, we find out that maybe we're not our greatest friend, and that we really need to be able to look at how does that look to learn about and love all aspects of myself as I go through these different things. And it's recognizing that, I'm going to have a variety of different emotions. I'm going to have a variety of different, I think day to day, sometimes it feels like my capacity can change. I can go on for a period of time and things can be really good, and I can feel like I'm an A+ and nothing is really shaking me. And then I can have other days where it doesn't seem like it's quite that way, just like you were talking about, Tracey. And so that's where it's, do I have, healthy ways to express or identify my emotions, to share those with somebody? Am I journaling so that those are coming out, so that I can look at health and healing, and I can look at just honoring my own experience. And when I honor my own experience, that allows me to honor the experience of other people. So learning to love all aspects of myself is important. And I think that I was just listening to a video by Elizabeth Gilbert. So she's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. And she did a YouTube video, and I think it's called I'm Feeling Overwhelmed. Here's what to do next. And she really talked about this idea of not rushing too quickly out of those moments, to really kind of learn about yourself and be curious and be creative about your experience. And so I really liked that part. And with that, I think that self-care is also not only honoring myself, but honoring those people around me. Because like I said, now, I've got my two, sort of near adult and adult children back with me, and I want to be able to honor their experience, because when we can work in harmony, not that we don't have our conflicts, but when we can understand each other and honor each other's experiences and the different challenges that we're facing on a daily basis, then that certainly makes life a lot easier for me as far as what self-care looks like. And I think that it's recognizing a big part is knowing that I can't do it on my own. That it really is about reaching out to people, reaching out in my community, making contacts with people that I know. I just think of some of the agencies that I used to have daily contact with or weekly contact with. And I remember the first couple of weeks of work and going, man, like everybody's so quiet. And I know people are just adjusting and managing, but it's like, I got to break out of this. Something's got to happen. And so being able to reach out and talk with other people just normalizes what I'm going to call the new abnormal, because this is not necessarily the normal that I would necessarily want to keep. And so it's a new abnormal, and we're all having normal responses to an abnormal situation. And I need my friends, I need my community. I need to be able to honor if I need to, call my counselor or therapist. And it's recognizing that there's no shame in getting that help. And, I think at a time like this, sometimes we can look at it and go, well, they've got their own struggles. They've got their own things that they're dealing with. I don't want to bother anybody, right? And so I think that that's another piece that can really fall into this idea of isolation, is I don't want to bother somebody else because they're already experiencing some challenges. But there's a lot of value when looking at self-care in meeting with other people and going, yeah, we are feeling, really common things. And what does that look like for you? And what does it look like for me? And then we can walk away going, yeah, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. Yeah.
No, wow, thank you. And I just want to, echo your comments around Elizabeth Gilbert's YouTube talk that she published last week. Now, one thing that I also took out of her message was around having a conversation with your love and being able to talk, to understand that loving ourselves is really important through, at all times, but even more important in relying on that love right now as we venture through this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
And when we talk about self-care, something that comes to mind, and we're doing it right now, is we've shifted from face to face. and we're now meeting via Zoom. And so we're meeting online, and it's a different style of connections, but it's allowing us still to connect. And one of the key areas that I've also recognized for self-care for myself is how to measure how much time I'm spending online too as well. And online with Zoom,
Yes.
online in other platforms. I know for myself, I haven't had the chance to even really do a lot in my other social media platforms at this time. And I'm starting to balance my online Zoom schedule so that it's not as intense as it was over the last month, because this last month was quite intense and it limited me for that opportunity to really ensure I had that self-care time and to take time to enjoy just some special moments away from the computer.
Yeah, and I think that I think that's valuable, because I think that that's one of the things, even working from home, a lot of people find there can be a lot of distractions, but some people find that because everything is right there, they can find themselves overworking at a time like this too. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Tracey.
And the other piece that, as we talk about measuring things, the amount of emails that are coming in now too as well. I found there's some amazing resources that are coming in via email, but also the email load has increased. So it's been both of those areas that I've been, even for myself, to be able to measure that and monitor. But as we're working through this pandemic, what do we need to be careful of?
I think there's a variety of different things to be aware of. I read an article the other day that just talked about this idea, or this push towards productivity. And where lots of people are saying, well, this is a great time to get education. This is a great time to do this or do this online course, or, all this kind of stuff. And, I just kind of remember our chief medical officer of addiction mental health for Alberta Health Services. In one of his mental wellness moments, he talks about to liken our experience right now as a marathon, not a sprint. And so we need to be able to pace ourselves. We need to be able to pace our response. Because what we have for immediate actions, what we also know is that there's going to be some actions that'll happen in a month, that will happen in 2 months, and that there's going to be some adjustment to do even 6 months from now. And so I think that it's being able to recognize that it's okay to have a plan for further stages, that it doesn't always have to be, what can I do right now? I can be developing ideas, strategies for later on, in this, in the challenges that we're facing now. I think that the other part is that we can, the other part of that is that we can fall into guilt because we feel like we need to be, doing more. We need to be handling things more. We need to be responding better or responding more. And, as, depending on your organization, I find like for us, there's aspects of our organization that are really kind of coming up with technology and using it that way. And then there's other aspects of our work that is struggling a little bit to do our work in the same way. So for me, because I'm out in the public doing presentations, we're still working on this piece of being able to get those presentations out to community, and what does that look like, and being able to get some useful training to equip people for different pieces. And in that, I think we can find ourselves feeling like we're missing the boat, and guilt can come into that. Even what used to be a common cold now can seem so much different, and can put us out for 10 days in a way that we hadn't expected. And so that's where I'm hearing lots of people feeling that they can't be on the front line, they can't be doing the things that they want to do, they can't be helping in the way that they want. And so they're feeling not only that they're a bit of a lack of purpose, but I think just feeling like I should be doing something. And that's where I found, this was one where I found myself, on our return from Vancouver. A natural stress reaction for me actually is for my tonsils to swell, for me to get, really tired and to have a sore throat. Well, that put me out of work while all these kinds of things were going on and people were still emailing. And so for me, I really had to kind of look at, when I get to go back to work, am I going to be a ragged wreck? Because I've been worrying about not being productive, I've been worrying about not responding, or do I want to go back to my workplace where I can feel healthy, where I can bring a new shine, hopefully, to the workplace, where I can bring a smile and kindness, and a love for being in that environment. Which one do I want to be? Right? Which one do I want to be? And so I really had to look at that. And like you had said with all the emails, I think there's, I believe that people can feel really overwhelmed with the amount of information that's coming in, even good information, wellness information. It can just seem like there's so much content to try and get through. And while we're in meetings and trying to do business differently, not always are we getting the opportunity to be able to respond in ways that we would want to, or read the things that we would want to, all that kind of stuff. And so we can find ourselves comparing ourselves with others. And so I think that's the other thing that we need to be really careful of, is that we don't know other people's experience. Some people can seem like they're holding it really together. Some people can seem like they're really struggling, but we can be comparing ourselves to other and going, what are they doing and how are they doing this? And they're already ahead of us. And but you know what? We only have our own experience, and that's what we have to honor. And I think that we can also find ourselves in places of despair if we're not careful, where we can get overwhelmed by the need, and just the depth and the extent of the need that's there in the community. I think a lot of us are used to responding to target populations. We know that those marginalized populations that we generally are going to. And, now our target population is our entire city, or it's our entire town, or, it's our neighbor. And so we can really kind of fall into this place of despair that we really have to be careful of. Yeah.
And when I think about being careful, as you look at around here, you have a whole beautiful group of wonderful members of Rotary who are dedicated to serve. And, we all desire to serve to the best way possible. And as we are exploring our options right now, that has changed. And I think that's also created some, I'm going to say, some questions, some uncertainty around how we're serving. One of the things I can share that I'm so proud of is our Rotarians have also explored ways that they can serve from home and find ways to still support. And, as you've mentioned, you were out into the front and working with organizations for many, every day you were out with another organization, another audience. And you now have found your way to do it through meeting with us today as you are now. But one of the things I'll say to our members here today is also recognize that what you're doing right now, whatever capacity, is wonderful. And sometimes we will challenge ourselves to say we're not doing enough right now during the pandemic. And when we as Rotarians, what we're doing is right for us right at this time. And there'll be opportunities for us to do more when we also are able to get back out into the streets and back out into our communities. But to also give ourselves permission that what we're doing right now is very much valued and appreciated.
And even, like because I teach psychological first aid, it's one of those things where, I definitely look at it too, and it's recognizing that from a step care model, or from a pandemic approach, when we're looking at psychosocial response, is we're continually in a place of impact and response. So there's an impact that happens, we want to respond, but then things change, and I think that, we can find that the needs change on a daily basis. The needs can change on a weekly basis. And so the skills or the resources that we were thinking before, it's like, I want to get this out here, I want to do this. Maybe that's not the right timing, and the timing comes at a different place. But I'm just looking at the chat box, and I see that there was a question, what advice would you give a stay-at-home parents of very young children who need to support the working parent during these times, while still taking care of their own needs? And, and that really is, I think a challenging situation, because that person's going to be coming home tired, or, stressed in certain ways, and so are you. And I think that sometimes we have to watch about being heroic during these times. And so sometimes when we're stay-at-home parents with kids trying to do everything, if we're natural caretakers, we will be the last person that we take care of. And so when my kids were little and single parenting, some of the bigger pieces that I did was sometimes my day was carved out before my kids even got awake, you know, so that I could be the person that I needed to be for them. I can't even imagine right now, like regularly waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like I used to do. Um, but I find that that's one of the things that, you know, I did um, so that I could do the reading that I wanted to do, or if there was a devotional that I wanted to be a part of, um, I would do it before the kids got up when the house was quiet. Um, you know, and I would find my place in order to be able to do that. I think that the other part of that is, you know, I think today we can get caught in this idea that we have to have life all scheduled, but the challenge with having a completely routined and scheduled life is that sometimes when we come off of that schedule, we feel really guilty about coming off of that schedule. And so being able to put in those self-care breaks where the kids can be alongside you, and recognizing that if I'm waking up and I'm an A plus, then we might be able to do a lot of things and I might be really capable that day. If I wake up and I'm feeling like a D plus and my stomach hurts and I have a headache and I'm just generally didn't have a very good sleep, not to feel completely guilty if maybe we watch, you know, a couple more shows that day because everybody just needs a bit more of a rest. And so how can they become a part of the things that we need to do in order to take care of ourselves? But also, you know, giving ourselves a break if we need to have, you know, use some of the strategies that otherwise people would say, no, you're not supposed to be doing that. This is not a time to be judging, you know, ourselves or others. We need to be able to go with what we can handle in that day. So I don't know if that helps or, you know, gives you an answer to your question, but it is a really challenging piece because you can't even pull in your resources, right? Like normally you would say, well, drop off the kids for a little bit. You know, sometimes, you know, and we're in days where that's not even necessarily possible. So we have to give ourselves a break along the way.
You know, Jody, we're all in this together, and you know, we're moving forward, and every day is a new day. Today is different than yesterday's, and as you mentioned, you know, things are changing quickly, and tomorrow is going to be different too as well. What is it that gives you? You and I have talked about hope. Can you tell me a little more about your thoughts around as we're moving through this and what hope means to you?
Yeah, you know, I've been really thinking a lot about hope in the last while, and even, you know, when we were going through the opioid crisis, as we were going through, and that was one of the main things, and a lot of people were feeling very burnt out and struggling a lot on the front lines with that. I really start to think more deeply about what does hope look like, and you know, for me, it was about getting down to some practical pieces. And I had to look at, for me, I had to look at my life and I go, okay, if I want to live my life in despair, what are my thoughts going to be like? How's that going to feel in my body? What emotions am I going to allow to just take over my life? And then I looked at that and I said, you know, that versus hope. What does hope look like? So when I look at people and I say, you know, what does hope look like? You know, oftentimes I see people that are looking for, you know, the best in situations. You know, even though people can't do as much as they want to, I still see people responding in ways that, you know, with kindness and care and all these different things that gives me hope, that, you know, helps me to see, knowing that I have a certain amount of influence on my workplace, that I can come in and I can spread hope and I can spread a positive attitude and I can look for opportunities to be able to share that with, you know, a special note or a special email or, you know, a special gift. I was getting groceries the other day and my parents live here in Grand Prairie and they're resigned to their house, but it's like bringing, you know, I bring flowers and it's funny because my dad, he'll take his times where he comes out and him, it's Kentucky Fried Chicken. He brings Kentucky Fried Chicken to our door, right? But I think, you know, one of the other things that when I go into my higher thinking, let's put it that way, Someone I admire once shared that some of the greatest inventions, innovations, ideas, businesses, and collaborations came out of times like this. So while I recognize the current climate and the things that are going on, and while I have days that I struggle as well, I also think that we are going to see some tremendous brilliance come out of this. I think that we're learning a tremendous amount about each other, about technology, about responding to the needs of people in a variety of different ways. I really do believe that we're going to see some great ideas and innovations come. I know that, you know, when we're looking at our business sector, that this is a really challenging time and a lot of people are off work. But I also think that, you know, while those people would have been trudging along, you know, in my environment anyway, in work camps and, you know, time away from their families and spending 30 days away from their families and, you know, a few days in and, you know, 30 days out and all those kinds of things. Like, I think that we have people that are going to just come up with some amazing ideas that would have never come out if this didn't happen. And so that really helps me to think of things a little bit differently and to anticipate great things instead of awful things. Does that make sense? So, yeah. Any comments on that?
You reference a lot, and I know this from prior to as well, our prior discussions and our relationship through the many years, Jody. But kindness is something that fits deep in your heart with hope as well. And as you reflect on kindness right now, we've talked about the self-care for kindness. We've also talked about the self-care, the care for others through kindness. If you were to think about kindness right now, what would be a message you would say to everyone of a small little tidbit they can add to their little tickle trunk right now that would help them say through the rest of the afternoon? What would a kindness message be, or a kindness gift that you could share today?
You know, to me, it's there's a campaign that we have in the North Zone, and it's out of the UK, and it talks about the 5 ways to well-being. And we did a campaign last year called Got a Minute, and it really helped me to see that, you know what, it really doesn't take a long time to spread kindness. It's a hi, how are you doing? It's, you know, a coffee when somebody doesn't expect it, or a tea. It's, you know, helping somebody with something that they didn't even expect. That, you know, if we look at things in terms of a minute, there's so many kindnesses that we can do, you know, in a simple minute. And it's, you know, and sometimes I think, well, a minute isn't very long, until I'm exercising with my daughter and we do like 45 seconds of the exercise and 15 seconds of rest. And I will tell you, 45 seconds is a really long time to be doing mountain climbers or squats or whatever it is a really long time. And so to really break it down into small pieces as to how can I, you know, and for me, it's where is my sphere of influence? And how can I start to spread that just a little bit more, with, you know, an inspirational email to somebody that you know is having a difficult time, just spreading you know what, I see you. I see you and I value you. I just want to let you know.
One of the things we've been talking a lot about, Jody, as well, is also to pick up the phone and to, you know, in the past we've done a lot of texting and emails, and we can still see that there's a lot of activity there, but also that to be able to hear someone's voice and to be able to pick up the phone and have that conversation and just say, hey, just checking in to make sure you're doing okay.
Yeah, and I think it's that piece too of actually, you know, it's actually like making sure that you have everything else shut off and that's all you're doing at that time. You know, And I agree with what you're saying, you know, Jerry, where you say it seems more and more challenging, not only with the pandemic, but with the added sorrow with the incredible tragedy in Nova Scotia, where I'm at. You know, we have an entire office that flooded because of Peace, you know, in Peace River, where people, you know, are still trying to figure out how to do the work that they're doing. And so, you know, not only were people not, you know, in a position to be in business, but now they're dealing with floods. And, you know, and I think that that's the added thing that comes along top of all of these things that can make it seem overwhelming. And that's why I think that this is where um, kindness is really important, because we can get lost in the tragedy. We can get lost in the multiple things that we know are going to continue along with all of this, right? Because we can't isolate, you know, the response of COVID and the things that we need to do with the other tragedies that go on. And so I do think that it is about making that conscious choice. Um, you know, that conscious choice of reaching out, that conscious choice of feeling hopeful, of grieving with people. I think that grieving with people is really important, whether you're grieving from far away or close, and are allowing ourselves to have that too. And I think that that's where, you know, when we get into this place of acting heroically, sometimes we don't want to face some of the grief that we're feeling, or we compare our grief to somebody else. And I can look at it some days and I can go, well, you know what? My son not having a grad is not nearly as bad as what happened in Nova Scotia. But I think the other part of that is I need to honor the experience that I am experiencing while I'm honoring theirs. And so when I honor both of them, then that makes it so that I can not only put things in context, but I can also, I think Elizabeth Gilbert also talked something about empathetic overload and empathetic, I'm trying to remember, but it's this whole thing where it's like, if I feel too deeply, I was a counselor for like, you know, 12 and a half years prior to my doing this work. And I got to a point where I realized that I was not going to be able to continue in that work quite as deeply as I wanted to, because that's where I was. I was in this compassionate or this empathetic overload where I was struggling to do the work that I was doing. I was experiencing a lot of compassion fatigue. And I knew that I needed to find something different, or my other relationships were going to continue to suffer in a way that was not helpful to me and was not helpful to them. And I really like how she says that I need to give people their experience, because holding on to their experience is almost dishonoring in the way that it's theirs to own, it's theirs to hold on to, it's theirs to, my job is to allow them to feel that to the fullest so that they can grieve in the way that is effective for their healing. And so I think that's, you know, the piece that as I look at lots of other things that are going on, I've really had to pull back from social media because it's difficult for me. It's been years since I really listened to the news, honestly, because I have this natural tendency towards compassion. And but I need to be able to put it in its right place and allow people their own experiences while allowing myself my own as well. And that's when I can best help others.
Thank you so much for that, Jody. You know, and I appreciate you sharing your heart with us and your vulnerability with us too, as well. That was something that I had to learn, and was working through, Dare to Lead and Renee Brown around being vulnerable and knowing it's okay, and to accept that within myself without being hard and judgmental of myself. And so I really appreciate you sharing today as well. We have also in the chat box a few other items that have been shared from Ingrid and Yvonne. And Jody, I've also just shared the link that you provided to me as well. I'm going to put it up right now. And please, anyone else add questions to as well to the chat area. I'm going to just pull up a website from Alberta Health Services here. And I apologize because I had it just a moment ago. And okay, sorry. Oops, the website's not showing. Just one moment. Sorry, Jody.
That's all right. while you're finding that, what I'll do is I'll just talk about what the resource is. So the resource is called Help in Tough Times, and it gives a variety of different information from sites where you can go for the latest up-to-date accurate information around um, around the COVID response. But it also gives some information around, and this is, I'm gonna, the self-help part where we talk about emergencies and disasters and the Alberta Ready, because, of course, like we say, we're coming into this time of floods. Our province has taken some really strong steps in order to be able to support and prevent fires in the way that we've had it in past years. And so looking at Alberta Ready, because part of our response when we're looking at disaster and when we're looking at pandemic is how can I prepare for other things that could be going on? And that's actually a great part of the healing process, to know that I'm prepared for something else that could happen. That I have the water, I have my disaster kit, I have all these different things that are there and ready for me. So that Alberta Ready, it actually kind of puts you through, I've actually been on that site, I've done their training that they've had there. It's interactive, it allows you to think of all kinds of different things, like, is your pet taken care of? Does your pet have medication? Do you have medication? Where's your medication list? And different ways that people are reaching out to, their communities right now. We have somebody in Fort McMurray who, is doing chats with seniors and, finding out that a lot of them are reducing their medications because they're fearful about what's happening at the pharmacy. And am I going to have enough medication, or I can't really get out because I'm not actually mobile and I don't have a credit card. And, there's lots of these different things to consider. And so some of the small pieces that we wouldn't even necessarily consider people are dealing with. But Alberta Ready allows us to be able to also put ourselves in a position of response to anything else that could be going on. We have our important phone numbers, our community resources, so the mental health and substance use, a beneficial way to support and aid teenagers and youth. So I believe that if we look in, I'm just trying to think. There was one thing where we talk about, I think on that site, where it talks about working with children and youth. So under the resources there, Tracey.
Okay.
So we have like the Healthy Together, so a guide to family and home life, talking to children, talking with, I would also go to your local mental health office. Most of them are still open and a lot of people don't realize. So addiction and mental health is an essential service. And I would say, have conversations with them. Your child doesn't have to be, and your family doesn't have to be falling apart for you to do some of the prevention work that's required to support our children and our teens through this time. Under stress, we have, the resource around stress in children and teenagers, and what does that look like? What are some of the self-management techniques? And I know that it can be really challenging. With my daughter, there's lots of things that her and I can do together. With my son, it really is about, for him, it really is about being able to go out to the bush. And luckily, that is an option that we have here in Grand Prairie. The bush is literally 15 minutes away, and then we can, he can see animals and we can see, it's just a way to kind of get out of city life. And so it's just looking at, what are some of the things that they need in order to be able to have this. I've talked to him about connecting with his friends via, Skype and FaceTime, and he's like, guys, don't do that. But I'm hoping he is doing some of that stuff and doing those conference calls with his buddies. So, I think that it's also looking at, your child in themselves as to, what are some of the things that were ways that they that really help them, and how do you connect them with those resources? And if they do need to have some additional support, then how can you get that for them?
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then we also have like coping after loss and suicide, and so this is another one that we're hearing about more as well. you know, is that suicide risk being, you know, higher during that time, and you know, what are some of the things that could be going on. So I know City of Grand Prairie or County of Grand Prairie is doing something tomorrow, um, looking at, you know, business and suicide prevention and, you know, things like that, right? So it's looking at your local agencies as well as, you know, what are some other information pieces that we want to have out there so that we can be aware for, you know, the different things that are going on.
So Jody, we have developed on our district website a COVID response area. I'm going to have this link posted there so it's readily available for all of the members in our Rotary District so they can easily access it, because as you can see, the amount of resources and support there is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. So as we get ready to leave today, we've got a few more minutes for questions. I do see here in regards to also a question around what would you suggest as a beneficial way to support and aid teenagers and youth at this time? And can I source you for social media posts for our Rotary Youth page? Yes, lovely. Do you want to talk for a moment, Christine, on what you're doing with our youth page so that Jody can understand what you're referencing there, and also for the others that aren't familiar that are with us right now?
Thank you, Jody. Thank you. Hi, my name is Kirsty. I'm a member of the Edmonton Youth.
Can barely hear you.
Oh,
Okay.
how about now? No. You all know sign language?
I could get my supervisor. She's
How about
doing
now?
Excel courses. Yeah, that's better.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Do you all know sign language? I'll do sign. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Tracy. My name is Kirsty. I'm a member of the Edmonton Rotary Club. I'm also a member of the Committee for Rotary Youth Leadership Experience, which was a camp, but we have now switched into a Youth Connect for the entire district. And we're currently trying to do online programs for youth. We're currently doing it through Facebook and Instagram. So every Tuesday and Saturday at 4 p.m. Alberta time,
Yeah.
we are doing showcases on just either games or cooking lessons, some arts and crafts, and then also we're trying to reach out and say, you know, being stressed right now is okay, but we're struggling to try and find resources or understanding the difficulties of students right now. So I was hoping maybe you'd have something else. Also, can I source you?
So what I would recommend is contacting your local mental health office, because one of the things that's nice about that is that you might find out that you can do something like this with your youth, where, you know, you're connecting them to somebody that's right in their community, that has lots of experience working with youth and speaks their language and does all that kind of stuff. So that would be one of the first things that I would do, when they could do stuff on, you know, talking about anxiety and what the you know, stress mechanism looks like, and so that they can get a better understanding of you know, what's happening in my brain and my body, and why is this not really working as effectively as you know, why are my strategies not working as effectively? And, you know, I think it also helps to just kind of get that conversation out there. And then as far as sourcing, I think that's okay. It's so weird. I have to tell you guys, like, it's so weird to work for an organization the size of ours, right? Because we're in a time right now where so much has to go through communications, and we have to make sure that everything is, you know, up to snuff and all that kind of stuff. And but, you know, I believe that, you know, some of the things that we said here is, you know, is universal for a lot of people, and you know, so certainly, yeah, you can. It always makes me question, just because, you know, I work for such a big organization. So yeah.
And, you know, Jody, I thank you for that. And, you know, with all the good resources that you've also noted that you have available online, there's some good resources to use to funnel and to connect our young people. But also, I'm going to reference Christine Rendell and myself. Christine and I are governors together this year. And when a few years ago when we were accepted and nominated and appointed as governors, I'll be honest, we never thought we'd be managing through times like this. And I can share from, Christine and I, and Christine, you've noted there as well, we've seen tremendous, tremendous stress added to, and I'm going to use the word stress and pressure in our roles. And we've been very fortunate we can connect and rely on each other and support each other. But this has moved us in our leadership capacity. We've grown immensely. We are always outsourcing supports to help us to maneuver through this. And so today I know is a huge gift for myself and for Christine. And I know that Christine, if she hasn't yet, wanted to reach out to you as well. So because of the resources that you have available, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for sharing with us today.
Yeah. And I think that, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, it's been very, very helpful today, and I have reached out to Jody, and I have been in touch with Dr. Nicholas Mitchell, and I'm really pleased to announce so that you guys can take advantage of our resiliency webinar that we are going to be hosting on May 5th from 4 to 5 p.m. And when we get that set up, I'll share the link with you, Tracey, so you can share it with your district. We are having we're going to have Dr. Nicholas present, the executive director from the Canadian Mental Health Association in Alberta will be there, hopefully, and a couple of other psychologists who are Rotarians. And so they're going to be able to give their perspective on what they're doing right now. And I know one of them is one of our assistant governors, and she is swamped right now with, she said it used to be 20% crisis management with some of her patients, and 80% just, helping them with their daily mental health matters. She said, but it's flipped. It's now 80% crisis and 20% of the day-to-day help. So she's going to be there as well. So, our mental health right now is for a lot of people, it's fragile. So I'm really afraid we have to do this. And Tracey and I agree, as leaders, we have to make sure we are providing our membership with these resources and enabling them to speak openly about their health. Tracey, I love these coffee meetings. They're great. I'm also having Christine's coffee and chat with my members as well. And I have a couple of times a week, I have a wine and a wine, which is wine and wine as in a dog whining. And it's quite fun because we have a few laughs. It's a fun time and people are sharing, and just staying in touch with our members is crucial as well. And it's a lot of pressure, but keeps us nimble. That's for sure. And sorry, I'm not on my picture today. I'm using my desktop. Brian has borrowed my laptop. My camera doesn't work on my desktop. So, I'll just thank you for letting me attend today, and I'll turn off my mic now so you can continue.
Yeah, and I just want to make note as well with teams is that, with everybody really, is that we do have our Text for Hope line, and so on that Help in Tough Times webpage, you can sign up for Text for Hope, and so every day they send you basically an inspirational text. Oftentimes they have a link where you can go to some other resources in order to be able to help support you, or that you can share with others. And so that's a great way. I find, like, just even, I don't always get a chance to read the text right away, but just knowing that text is coming in. There's another app that I really, really like, and it's called Action for Happiness. And so when we're looking at, those little things that you can do every day, so what they put on is they have an action that you can do for that day. And then partway through the day, they also send you an inspirational message on there. So you can put on your notifications for your app. And so I really find that that's a great way to kind of get myself started as well, as to, what's my one thing I'm going to do today to be kind, to make a difference.
Well, Jody, this has been absolutely tremendous. I really appreciate your sharing of your kindness, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and being available for each of us today. And I appreciate every member that was able to join us as well, and all the wonderful questions and dialogue that we've had today, and the support of each other, and all the kindness that's been expressed to each other as well. Now, Jody is a tremendous resource, as you can see, and she's provided us with some good tools to have today and to add to our toolbox. And many of you have heard me talk about our toolbox before, but that toolbox is really important right now, and to continue to add a little more. And some of them is around hope, around kindness, and around, the action for happiness. Those are great tools for us too as well. All those beautiful links that were shared from the meditations as well that Ingrid noted, and Jody from the Alberta House website, and also Yvonne had one there too as well. So really appreciate this today. For information purposes, this recording will go on our COVID website, which is on the district page. It takes about a day for us to be able to get it uploaded, but it is a place where you can go back and re-listen. And hear Jody's words again, and also just take and absorb some of our messaging today around kindness and care, self-care, and know that what we're doing is right today for ourselves. So really thank everyone today. We just also reminder, we have our newsletter that's now published weekly. So Sunday, you'll receive the newsletter. And if you've got some things you'd like to share in the newsletter, please forward them off to Nelson, and he will ensure to include them. Our Facebook page is also your page. It's our Facebook group for sharing, and I encourage all of you to continue the great sharing that you have been doing on the Facebook page. Maybe it's something within your club, maybe it's a great resource that you heard about today. That's your platform for sharing, so please do use it. Our next coffee talk is just preliminary, being scheduled right now. So there will be information be posted on our Facebook and will be provided to the area governors here within the next day. I hope to have it finalized by the end of tomorrow, so it'll be available for you too as well. And it's based on, we're looking at some discussions around cultural components and inclusion and diversity around cultural components right now. So do watch for that. I also just want to note as well that Rotary International is holding an online telethon. It's coming up on May 2nd, on Sunday the 2nd. The information was posted also as well in the district Facebook group. Really, truly encourage all of you to participate and attend. The funds that are being raised are going to COVID response, and recognizing that we are key on the ground, providing essential support to necessary organizations right now, and that we have already maxed out the $3 million that was assigned to us. We're hoping we can raise some additional dollars that will help us to respond right now to COVID. So encourage all of you to participate and share with your clubs and your members the telethon that's coming up online with Rotary International. So again, thank you. Thank you for participating, and thank you for everything you're doing. As you go forward this afternoon, stay well, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and we'll look forward to connecting again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.